Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Big C. Got some good news for you guys. Hey man, y'all know I've been struggling with vaping, and last Sunday I decided to just give it up. I took all 3 devices, put them in a bowl, took them downstairs, filled it up with water, and threw them in the trash, and haven't vaped since. And it's going on. Today is Saturday, so it's been like 6 days. It ain't been easy because I tell you, I've been reaching for it. The first couple of days was hard because I would reach for it and it wasn't there. And I'm like, oh my God. And I just wanted that sensation of nicotine. So what I had to do is I'd put something in the palm of my hand and I would just put it up to my lips and call it whatever it is. It worked. So we got almost a week in. Each day is getting easier. So, hey, yeah, just want to be transparent with you guys. I told you guys I've been needing to quit, but I just hadn't really wanted to quit. But I realized, it's being counterproductive. I'm getting back in shape and vaping can't be a part of that. So, guys, continue to pray for me as I pray for you guys. But, hey, nevertheless, today, guys, we going to talk about them triggers. Them triggers. We got to talk about them triggers.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Guys, it's important to understand what our triggers are. And for those of you that may not know what I'm talking about, triggers in addiction are those things that activate our addiction. And I'll speak from my experience. There were 3 things I knew that were triggers. And triggers can be people, it could be places, and it could be things that once you're exposed to these things, it activates the addiction in you. And most times it causes us to go out and relapse and use. So I know for mine, money was a trigger for me in active addiction. Having money would just spark, especially at the height of my addiction. I couldn't keep money on me. I don't care if I had $6, $7. I was going to get high, let alone let me have a paycheck of $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. Yeah, it was a real trigger for me. And that was something that it just kept me bound in addiction because I was working a job, but I was also getting paid, and the pay was keeping me in active addiction. So it was like a cycle. Another thing for me was alcohol. Alcohol, I always had the notion that, well, hey, I'm not going to get high this weekend. I'll just drink alcohol. But I noticed over time, alcohol, I could probably sit there for a few hours and drink and get drunk or whatever. But eventually that wouldn't be enough. And then I'd have to go out and find some dope. So alcohol was like it would lead me, even though I'm fooling myself thinking, well, I'm just going to drink, it would ultimately lead me to go back and get high, because alcohol, once it also inhibited my awareness to where it just helped me let my guard down. And now I just go and do whatever I'm feeling. So alcohol was a trigger for me. And another trigger for me was, women. Now, guys, I just keep it a buck with you guys. I get on that dope, man. It just bring out the freak in me. I'm ready to get my freak on. And so, hey, there was certain type of women that, even as I'm in a period of being clean, certain type of women or certain things a woman would wear. I know this is crazy, but hey, this is the reality of it. It would trigger me because like I said, I was a big old trick out there, If I had money and dope, I'm tricking. It's just that's what it was. And so women became a trigger for me. And so I really had to take a look at these 3 things when I got into being sober. I really had to understand. Now there's other things too, but I'm just trying to keep my big 3 were women, money, and alcohol. But it also can be places, because even to this day, guys, I can go past certain parts of the city and go past a place where I knew I used to be up in there doing my thing, and it'll bring back old feelings. But I just thank God today I've got enough sense and enough days clean to where it doesn't affect me, and I know how to just direct my mind into a whole nother area rather than dealing with that. But I want you guys to understand, I don't know what your triggers are, But you have to sit back and you have to sit down and you have to evaluate what triggers me. It could be people. It could be that love. It could be that person, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. It could even be a husband or a wife if you guys are sitting there using together. So this is something I just want you guys to just sit back and just say, what triggers me? And once you identify what triggers you, you have to know, I have to avoid these things at all costs. Now, it was hard because I needed a paycheck, but I knew the money was setting me up for failure. And so that's why I say, guys, sometimes we got to be willing. If I know the job and the money that I get every week as a paycheck is a trigger for me, and it's sometimes we have to do what we got to do. What's more important at this point in time? Me continue getting a job and this paycheck, knowing that it's keeping me in addiction, or me just saying, hey, you know what? Let me cut all ties loose. It is what it is. Let me get somewhere stable for a few months, a recovery house or something, and get my mind together, and whatever happens, I just got to let the job. Guys, these are just the realities of addiction. And when we come to these things, we have to do what we've got to do. I'm trying to keep this sun from, but guys, you got to pay attention to your triggers. Know what they are. Be able to identify them and be able to navigate and stay away from them. This will help us stay clean and sober because we know those things to avoid that will take us back, And guys, this is just the reality of recovery, is the fact that you got to be willing to take an honest look at yourself and see where you're going and be able to identify those things that will set you back, So this is just me coming to you guys to let you know that triggers are important and you must be able to identify them. Like for me, when it comes to the women, there's a certain type of woman that if I see and I know she's an addict, it would trigger something inside of me. Not all women, but if I knew somebody, if I seen a woman and I knew she was getting high, then that would trigger something inside of me. But God, at the end of all of this, you got to know that God is able to deliver us from all these things. But you got to understand and know what triggers you. Because if you don't know this, that's why we get caught in that cycle of why we keep doing it. Hey, man. Hey, how's it going?
All right, man. How you doing?
We're doing. All right, you too now. So you have to just sit down sometimes and just take an honest look at yourself and see what actually sets you off, what actually triggers that, and be willing to take a look at it and deal with it. Hey, how's it going, man? Be willing to take a look at it, deal with it, and overcome it. Because, guys, we got to be as cunning as this disease or spirit, however you want to look at it. But these are the things that we got to do, because you got to understand this is a fight for the rest of your life. And you got to come up with strategies. You got to know the way that this thing operates, and you got to have a counter attack against it. And so knowing our triggers helps us to avoid people, places, and things. And understand triggers can also be certain times of the month. Like if you could get a monthly check, probably a day or two before that, you start getting triggered, especially if you're in active addiction, because you're probably getting ready to get this money and you're going to get high. So, guys, the triggers or whatever activates the addict in us. And that's different for everybody. I don't know your triggers. We probably got a lot in common. And so you have to do the evaluation and sit down and see, what is it that triggers me? Be willing to take an honest assessment of yourself, take it for what it's worth, and begin to avoid and put in the strategies into place of how to avoid these things so that you can live a productive life and be aware of the traps and the snares of the enemy. And so, guys, if you don't get nothing from this video, get this. You have to take time out to understand what your triggers are. See, in this war of recovery, and I call it a war because it is, every day we go to war with this addiction. And we got to get strategic, and we got to know our strengths and our weaknesses. We got to know, if we're Superman, we got to know our kryptonite. And we got to know those things that are our kryptonite, because triggers will take us back, and we got to know them so that we can at most try to avoid them. Sometimes they can't be avoided, but even in that, we've got to get strategic in how we deal with each situation. Sometimes you just may be in a store and you run across somebody you used to get high with. Nothing you can do about that, but there's something you can do about the reaction to that. You see, guys, see what I'm saying? So guys, just in my own mind and how I know figuring out what the triggers are and how it helped me, I believe this will bless you guys, because you want to know this. And when they pop up, first of all, you want to try to stay away from them, but we can't go live in a bubble. So things are going to happen. We're going to be face to face with triggers sometimes. But for the most part, we want to try to avoid them. But if we do have to face them, guys, it doesn't mean we just give into it. We have to be strategic in how that's why sometimes it's good to just play out some what ifs and have an escape plan for when life throws you a curveball and next thing you know, you're looking at a familiar situation. You know, you kind of got an idea of, you've went over in your head, what am I going to do if I'm ever put in this situation? And sometimes things happen and we just have to do the best we can, whatever we got to do to get out of that situation. But guys, they're called triggers for a reason. A trigger activates something, like a trigger on a gun. It activates the gun to shoot. And that's how triggers activate an addiction. Those things that trigger our addiction, we want to be mindful of. And we want to know how to deal with these things. Guys, I can't stress this enough. Triggers. You know, as I look back in my recovery, triggers could be the number one thing take us back, because we overlook them, we downplay them. We think that, well, if I'm presented with a trigger, if it comes in that I can overcome it. Be strategic, guys. That's all I'm saying, because you got this. With God as your help, you have got this. But understand, we have to be strategic in everything that we do now, because this addiction, it's cunning, it's baffling, and it's powerful. So we have to get cunning and we have to get wise in how to deal with it. And guys, we can do this. So guys, I pray that this video has blessed you on triggers. Just keep in mind, know your triggers. Take time out, write them down, know what your triggers are. Because if you think about it long enough, you'll know those things. You'll know those people. You'll know those places that trigger you. And you want you to do your best to avoid them at all costs. So guys, I pray that this has blessed you. You guys stay blessed, stay motivated, and I will see you guys on the next one. God bless you all.